Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another special episode of Herschel Talkers. We got Angry Scott and Casual Fan Kris joining us again. How are we doing today, boys?
Doing well. What's going on, Trey? What's up, Scott?
What's going on?
He's enthused. Make sure to like and subscribe. Help those notifications. Hey, share, like, subscribe, and share. Help us out. Jumping right
Trey,
in.
are you gonna put out a hashtag on Herschel Talkers?
Hash browns, Viva Seltzer, Viva Tequila Seltzer. Hash browns. All right, jumping right into it. Looking like that internet there's great. There it is.
Hey, that looked like Georgia on Saturday. The internet connection.
Speaking of the devil, Georgia escapes, scrapes by. What other some great ones? Shit the bed. Completely almost ruined my Saturday night. 26-21, number one team in the nation, even though they're not now. Barely makes it by Missouri. 30-point spread. 16-6 at halftime. I think I was in complete shock. So my mom and I are really close, and she's probably one of the most knowledgeable, probably women in football I know. I mean, not, I'm sure there's more knowledgeable. She's really, for the average woman, she's really good. Followed Georgia football, but we were, what's going on here? This is terrible. Not the team that we thought we were. I'm looking over at one of my buddies. This might be an Outback team. This might be a 10-2 team if they do this. Here are the negatives. Couldn't run the ball. Offensive line, just the interior of the guards were looking terrible. Got your boy Tate Ratledge mullet over there. Can't move anybody. They were penetrating. Stetson Bennett was off. Drop balls. Another thing is 2 turnovers. That's 5 turnovers in the last 2 games. As you know, in football, you can't do that. Missouri had the crowd going at 16-6. We eventually kind of could move the ball and ran the ball pretty well in the fourth quarter and leaned on them a little bit. But that was definitely not the number one team. I thought that we shouldn't have been ranked number 2. I could see us dropping all the way down to 3 or 4, to be honest. But just very disappointed. I'm on kind of desperation alert. I'm really worried about the team because we've got Auburn's coming up, Vanderbilt, then we have Mississippi State and Tennessee. Tennessee's going to be tough. So what was your thoughts, guys? Because very disappointed in showing not a number one team, not the standard.
Well, I'll give you some of my thoughts here, Trey. I mean, when you came out that first week against Oregon, I said, damn, Georgia didn't miss a beat. Hey, they reloaded. But then, you got Sanford. You did what you're supposed to do, Sanford. But then the mighty SEC, South Carolina. And then, hey, you're cruising, man. The most points you've given up, per game was, 7 to South Carolina, being 48-7. But this is 2 weeks in a row, man. And Kent State, was in. I know my dad's listening to. He's not Angry Scott. So I'm sure he's going to listen to this podcast. He went to Kent State along when he was there at school the same time that Nick Saban was there. They were in a coaching class together. I digress. So, but Kent State, man, your final score was 39-22, but the game was a lot closer than that. Now you're like, oh, okay, hey, look, I get it. 18 to 22-year-olds, you can't. Yes, you want to come out every week and you want to get excited and you just want to pound your enemy into submission, but this is back-to-back weeks. And Kirby Smart's argument, Kirby being who he is the argument for everything can't be, well, this is the SEC, brother. You never know what's going to happen. No, it's college football, brother. Okay? And it's you look shitty 2 weeks in a row. First 2, Kent State, the mighty Golden Flashes, and now Mizzou, bro. You weren't looking that way against, I'm looking at the schedule coming up. You weren't looking that way against, Tennessee. You weren't looking that way against, even though Florida's maybe not as good as what we thought, but you weren't looking that way. You weren't looking at that way against the best of the SEC. This is Mizzou, an old Big 12 school. So, that would be my concern. The other thing I'll say, man, is, I said this the other day in our Buckeye podcast, but I don't think anybody really looks like world beaters. I don't think Alabama looks like the Alabama of old. Not right now. I think from what I've seen this year, I think Georgia, besides these last 2 weeks, still looks like, to me, the number one team. I think Ohio State, it's Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. I think Ohio State's offense, I want to be worried about that. The defense has got their holes. I mean, Stetson, man, I was looking at the stats, 24 for 43, but he still threw for 312 yards. Now your problem is 0 touchdowns with the 0 interceptions.
Yeah.
But I think he had a fumble and had some other problems along the way. So I mean, it was at Mizzou. I don't know. You can't get excited for it, but it's now you got what should be a bad Auburn team come up. They got pounded by the mighty Penn State Nittany Lions. So if you do 3 weeks in a row, it looks like that game's at home though, isn't it? Versus Auburn.
There's 3:30, which is good. Deep route. What is it? Sorry, I should know this. The Deep Rival's oldest rival. There it is. Deep South's oldest rival. I always get that mixed up. 127th meeting, by the way. We'll get into that.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
all I'm saying is, hey, you came out with another victory, but when you play the Kent States of the world, you play the Mizzous of the world.
Yep.
You should go and you should beat those schools. You shouldn't just win by 4 points. I know it's tough to win every week and all that other bullshit, but if you want to go on to make the playoffs to win another national title, then you're really playing against the standard. That's when I watch Ohio State every week that I say, yeah, hey, we beat the shit out of Rutgers. We pounded Toledo. Who cares? Would this be good enough to beat Georgia? Would this be good enough to beat Alabama? And Georgia, you should be thinking the same thing. I don't really see a whole lot of roadblocks. It's still Auburn. It's still Florida coming up. Really, your toughest game is going to be Tennessee. And then are you going to trip up against Kentucky or Mississippi State? But
On the
I
road,
mean, is Mississippi State really that good? Or is Texas A&M just choking on the chicken bone of old Jimbo the auctioneer? So
Yes.
I don't know. You tell me, Trey, where are your concerns? I mean, it was just some fumbles, some sloppy play, but I mean, where are your concerns? I mean, it looks like both Stetson Bennett and Milton both had fumbles.
Yeah, the other negative is Jalen Carter, number 1 defensive lineman, maybe a top 5, top 10 pick right now. Sprained MCL, I believe. There was a very cheap shot. He already had a bad ankle. He's playing with that. The guy went low. There was actually a little smack talk in pregame. It showed. I didn't realize that till during the game. So anyway, they're saying in Kirby speak says 1 to 2 weeks, but from the Georgia fan, that means 4 to 5 weeks because he'll say he'll be fine. That means week to week. That means I've seen guys half the season out. So I mean, I'm hoping we see him by Florida or Tennessee, which would be 4 or 5 weeks. So that's bad. We're still banged up at wide receiver. We might get 2 other wide receivers back. A.D. Mitchell, our best one, he's been out with a high ankle sprain. Also another one, Arian Smith, who's one of the fastest guys, but he's missed he's played in like 6 games out of 46 games in his 3 seasons. Always been hurt. Great player when he's in there, but it's always hurt. Real quick, if I want to see more Brock Bowers, I think you should get him 8 to 10 targets no matter what. He's that good. Like even if you got to force it to him.
Do you think he's your best wide receiver? I know he's a tight end, but you think he's the best receiver?
I'll go ahead and say this. He's our best player on the overall team. Guy's great. He's a matchup nightmare. Also, zeros, they call him. Darnell Washington probably saw him jumping over guys 6'7". You got to get him more targets. He's just a nightmare. It's pretty bad when our tight ends are best, but hey, that is. We're still lacking in the running game. Also, another thing, our wide receivers cannot get separation. Unlike you guys that are running down the field, getting separation, blasting guys, we are limited. Could go back to recruiting. Our O-line is in question, which is supposed to be a strength. Our guards have been looking like trash. Our left and right tackles got blowed by a couple of times. Bennett was a little lost. Also, back to Bennett, he hadn't thrown a touchdown pass since week 3. So it's 2 straight weeks.
Well, my concern
Trey,
from the outside,
let me walk you back a little bit. So all that talent Georgia's got, you guys can't get separation on Mizzou?
I know. It's bad.
Did they scheme you pretty well? I'm struggling. I can't believe you guys are better than that. Like just talent-wise, depth-wise. Tell me something different.
I agree. It kind of came back to coaching. Another thing, Stacey Searles is getting questioned as our O-line coach. They hated him at UNC. Had one of the worst offensive line, PPR, whatever it is, public or pro football. So it was a bad hire. Our previous guy, Matt Luke, left right after the recruiting game. Kind of said, "Hey, I'm burnt out. I don't want to coach anymore. Take some time with my family." So I felt like this was an emergency hire. So that might be showing. Our Todd Montkin, who's usually one of our great OCs, love the guy. He won a national title, Stetson Bennett, but his kind of schemes and play callings were a little questionable last week. So I don't know if it's just an overall bad game, but this is 2 games. And you got Auburn coming up. And then looking at that really quick, 30-point spread. I'm like, Vegas, I know you build all those casinos out there. I don't see it. All you degenerate gamblers, take Auburn in the points. I know Harson's about to get fired, but this is a rivalry game. A lot of these guys recruited against each other. I mean, I don't know. I'm almost on the panic. I want to see what they do this week. I'll make a prediction. I like 31-10, but this could be closer than you think in the first half. This could go deep in the third and fourth quarter. Get out the Xanax and the liquor, man.
Oh,
well,
man.
let me ask you a question real quick, Trey, because once again, I'm looking, your first 3 games, you give up 10 points, and then back-to-back weeks against, inferior opponents, you gave up 22 both weeks. So my question is, Brock Bowers say your best player on the offense, right? Stetson Bennett, is he your second best player offensively?
I mean, he was the first 3 games. Another thing, really looking at this, we beat a good, ranked Oregon team. That was a good win. They could possibly be ranked in the top 10. I think they're 12 this week. But average or terrible South Carolina team, Kent State, barely won against Ohio last week in overtime. We're not talking about Ohio State. Ohio, you got a 2-3 Missouri team, dead last in the league, and you got Samford. Is that an FCS school or FBS? I forget, mixed up. So you got 1 good win, and you're supposedly number 1, number 2 in the nation, and you're rolling around with Missouri. So,
well, what are your thoughts defensively, man? So definitely, you don't think the defense is tough. I mean, as tough as last year. You had a bunch of draft picks defensively. Where are your concerns defensively?
Yeah, I'll say defensively, not with Jalen Carter. Our pass rush has been lacking, but if you look statistically, we're still ranked top 5. I think we're top 4, which is great. That when Malachi Starks ran that guy down on the 1-yard line was huge, because that would have gave him up 4 more points. We only won by 4, so that was huge. They're in that bend don't break. They give up a lot in between the 20s, but have really red zone. They're really good. So I think we'll be okay there. We're not as elite. Hey, there it is, Scott. Elite as if we were last year, but we're still good. Maybe even in great. That top 5, which is great. Another big question, a negative for our red zone. We're terrible in the red zone, 65%. I think you guys are one of the best in the red zone. We kicked 4 field goals last week. That's another positive thing. We got a field goal kicker. I think he leads the SEC. That also shows you kicking a lot of field goals. And then Missouri, if you saw him, that dude needs to get NIL Krispy Kreme endorsement. Dude, he looked like a big fat lineman, but he was kicking the crap out of the ball. Had a 52 and a 55. Had 5 field goals. There were 9 field goals in this game. SEC Network, whatever, it's 9 field goals. I'm like, what is this? So I didn't sleep well that night. Hope we get it going, but I'm on panic mode as a Georgia fan for this week. I want to see something.
What are your thoughts there, Kris?
Honestly, I thought Georgia should have took care of business.
Exactly. 30
but, I mean, I really did. This is one of those games you're like, okay, it's Mizzou. Let me go do some chores, or let me figure something else out to do. But again, I kind of flashed in and out on the game, and big bit of a shock. Actually, expectations were a lot higher for you guys to, put up. Actually, give us our meet the spread or beat the spread, but I don't have that. There's not much else to comment on the game. Trey, like you mentioned, defense, just looking at the trend of the scores here, Kent State and Missouri both putting up 22 points. That's again, I'm betting Kirby's going to have some tough talks with the defense this week in the DC.
He did. I will say on the Kirby post conference, I listen to a lot of things. He's got this chill demeanor about him. He did say, hey, we got our ass whipped this week online. He did say he was. But he also said we had adversity, composure. If I could have anything out of it, I guess you did show that they did come from behind, even though it was Missouri. It came from 16-6. I think it was deep in the third quarter. So you can say that as a positive. I'd say adversity, you came back and you got a good kicker is the only positives. Everything else to me was not.
Yep. Trey, tell me this. Do you guys have a relatively young defense this year? I know you lost a
We
lot of
do.
guys, right?
They are young. There's been some question, are there any leaders on the team? Because we lost Jordan Davis, first rounder,
Kobe Dean.
with the Eagles. That was like your captains, your leaders, and you got some younger guys. So I'm not sure how the locker room looks, but we did lose a lot. When you lose 5 guys in the first round off that defense, it's 15 guys overall. We lost a lot. Everybody, I
Yep.
think, deep down knew that. But then when we smoked Oregon and we smoked South Carolina, everybody's like, all right, they're back. But deep down, I think skeletons are coming out that we're young. Hopefully we'll progress, but there's some flaws there, being honest.
Yeah. So
Well,
is it go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the other thing, Trey, is like, I'm a Big Ten guy, and so is Kris. But, I'll tell you, outside of Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, the Big Ten is mostly garbage this year. But I'm looking at the SEC, man. And, I mean, I know you're not playing to that same standard. Yes, you want to be pounding these teams into submission. But, I mean, I'm still, man, Alabama, I don't think it's Alabama of past. I'm just looking who they are. Both teams you're playing, but also teams you could play in the SEC championship game. Arkansas, man, I mean, it's Arkansas's better, and Bama was close there for a while, but then, Bama, pulled away, and we thought Florida is good. Now maybe Florida's not good, and Auburn's, you're scared about the game because it's, you're scared of what that rivalry could be, but it's like, how good are they? And everybody's like, well, Kentucky's better. I'm like, it's Kentucky, though. Do you really? I mean, is Kentucky for real? LSU only has one loss, but I mean, who have you really played? So I'm just kind of going down. I mean, Ole Miss is better. I do get you that, but I mean, Texas A&M isn't what they thought it was going to be. I mean, game day was probably going to be at Alabama and Texas A&M, but then they're like, nope, we're going to go to Kansas and who is it? TCU. So what my question for you overall is, hey, I know you're not living, maybe not playing at that same standard you were last year, but do you really think the SEC is as tough as what it was last year?
If you have a healthy Bryce Young, they run away with that. They've been kind of sporadic. They'll have a lockdown defense, but they do have some holes for Alabama. And then Texas pushed them, and Texas is what, 3-2. So I think they're beatable. They're not that machine as they used to be. I think everybody's beatable, like what you said. I hate to go that whole cliche any given Saturday, but I would not that team would get smoked by Alabama, Ohio State, or even Clemson if they play like that. You can't turn the ball over. But if they can somehow play in the big games like that game in Oregon, that was 4 quarters full. That's a playoff team. I don't know if they can win the national title, but that's where they're supposed to be. But you can't play that. They can't play like this the last 2 games. If they do that in this little gauntlet coming up, they could drop 1-2 games. Being honest.
Yep. Trey, let me ask you. So you mentioned leadership and nobody's really stepping up. You think Auburn and Vandy? You think those are 2 games where you think some guys will emerge? Typically, teams with a lack of a present leader on the field, typically they mature throughout the season. You think there's a chance somebody can shine through over the next 3 games?
That's good. That's a good point, Kris. Yeah, we got some really young guys. I hope we get up on those guys and can kind of play them, in third and fourth quarter. And I feel like we need to get healthy too. If we can get these 2 wide receivers back, maybe get Jalen Carter back for the last 4 or 5 games where we'll need them. I'll feel a whole lot. And just we need to get a core offensive line group is important too. Like get your 5 or 6 because you keep saying they rotate a lot. Get your 5 or 6 dudes unless there's injury and just roll with them. Like one guy, Tate Rowley, was supposed to be the best guy on the team, but he had that Liz Frank injury, so he's basically only played in 3 or 4 games. So you got to get him. He's green. You got to get him. Got to give him more experience, more reps. So that is a good point. And feed 19 and 0 the ball. These are your best players. Let's try not to get them injured. And then there's Dominique Blaylock. We got some wideouts too. They're looking better. Maybe you can have some go-to to them. But looking at the game real quick. So this one's 30 points. This is nuts to me. They know more than I do. But
you do realize they lost like 41-13 to Penn State at Auburn, in the Deep South, and that is a home game. And look, man, you should be better than Penn State. Georgia football should be better than Penn State.
But we're also
now, Trey, let me ask you this. After this game, did you think about throwing down some of those Viva seltzers?
I did. Good transition there. Viva Seltzer, introducing Viva Tequila Seltzer. My friend, you corrected me from last week, has only 88 calories, 0 sugars. Hey, you can enjoy it pre-game, post-game, after the gym, on the golf course. Viva can be enjoyed whenever. Live long, live well, live it up.
Can you enjoy it after a disappointing win to Mizzou, where it felt like a loss?
I did. I needed to go home and comfort myself and drink a couple of these. I did. Also,
well, I'm sure that's some more deep-seated issues, but regardless, I'm glad you were able to throw these down for some comfort.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Also, 10% off. Hustle for 10% off is your discount code. Really.
Hey, if I want to go and buy a Viva Seltzer, where can I go buy a Viva Seltzer?
Yeah, actually, right now we can go to Viva tequilaseltzer.com. They are not in the grocery stores, I believe, because they contain tequila. I believe that's some of the state laws and requirements there.
So once again, vivatequilaseltzer.com, promo code hustle.
Hustle, that's right, for
10%. Let's get it.
Yep.
As in, if Mizzou would have hustled some more, they would have beat Georgia.
That's right. Also, real quick, I'm gonna make a pick on this. I'm gonna go 31-10. I do want to point out 127th meetings is a really old rivalry. And also, Georgia has owned these boys. They've won 14 out of 17. Looking at these, a lot of red here, which is good. Last time they beat us was when Gus Malzahn beat us, and he said, we beat the dog crap out of them. So what did Georgia do next? Beat the hell out of them in the SEC championship game. Then Bama broke our hearts. But we've kind of owned these boys. Brian Harsin on his very last leg. I think any day now they're going to fire him.
Dead man walking.
Dead man walking, he said. But I like it 31-10. Any prediction on this? 30-point spread? Just being non-biased? You guys
go ahead, Kris.
I think Georgia comes out guns a-blazing, so I'll say 42-17.
All right, I like
defense steps up just a little bit more, but you guys have a point to prove. You got to assert your dominance, establish your territory. So
I like it.
Again, dogs 42-17.
You know, the only way to establish your territory, and I hope that's not done on the field if you follow what I'm saying. But anyway, I would say Trey, this is not the Scam Newton Auburn Tigers. This is not the Auburn of old. So I mean, you're playing Auburn, and you're worried about Auburn, but Auburn is bad. I watched all that Auburn Penn State game, and they are bad. And yes, it is a dead man walking. I don't see how their coach makes it through the end of October. I don't think he's going to make it past mid-October, because now you've had other coaches getting fired around college football, and now they're like, well, we're going to make this change? Are we just going to go ahead and when are we going to go and eat this money? So I would say, ready for this? It's going to be 48-12.
Wow.
So how do I get to 12? They're going to miss an extra point and have 2 field goals.
All right.
That's how they're going to get 12.
I like that. And then I want to give a shout out to talkingdogs.com. Go there for all things Georgia. We got the coffee shop where they talk about a lot of things. Commit to the G, all the recruiting news. We post here on Forum Film Study, and they got Talking Dogs swag. So check out talkingdogs.com and look for us in the Forum Film Study.
And I'll also say real quick, we love your comments. Please comment. Please tell us why we're right and we make no wrong decisions here. No wrong opinions. And if you want to tell us they're wrong, hey, we'd love to still hear from you. And we'll explain to you very politely or not so politely why we're right. So please make some comments, and we'll get a little mailbag here and respond to your comments.
That's great. Any questions on the way out there, guys?
No, not really. I mean, I guess my question is, right, how much are you going to pound them? And then you've got Vanderbilt. Are you worried about Florida in a couple of weeks? Or is Florida just, a huge disappointment?
Yeah, we'll have a bye week right before it, which will be a much needed bye week. Florida, of course, neutral site game, big rivalry game. I'm not really scared of Anthony Richardson. I know he looked really good against Tennessee, but I believe we'll contain him. I think we'll probably beat them by 10-14. They'll get up for us, but I do like that bye week if we get some guys back. Tennessee on the November 3rd or 4th, And if they somehow knocked off Alabama, Rocket Strap could be top 5 matchup. They could jump. Huge game. That could be SEC East implications. But I will say this: Tennessee at LSU, better be glad that's not a night game. They have a good running game. Tennessee, as it's looking, beat Pittsburgh, who got beat by Georgia Tech with no coach. Terrible loss, by the way. That was bad. So that's making them look bad. And then they beat up a bad Florida team. Florida made it a little interesting at the end, but they hadn't beaten them. I think they've lost 16 out of 17. And then the one that I'm really a little nervous about is at Mississippi State, just because they throw it every play. It's going to be the cowbell. It's going to be a tough environment. Kind of worried about those, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's still, look, I mean, you've got to be favored in every game, right? You've got to be favored in every game. It's just some of these other teams, I'm just trying to figure out how good they are. You know, how good is Clemson? How good is Michigan? You know, look at who they played. So I don't know how good Oregon is. Is Georgia just that damn good? And Oregon just went, got bad Bo Nix, you know what I mean? And now he's playing better. So it's still, I know we're in October, but that's where we're still trying to figure out, who we are. Are they who we thought they were? That's what my question is,
There you go. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you coming on again. And that's Herschel Talkers. Make sure to rate and subscribe again. Describe. Hashtag House Brownies. Hash Brown.
Do it all.
Do it all.
Good show, boys.
All right, man. I appreciate it. See you guys. Herschel Talkers, and we're out.